Jason had always been the quiet, observant type. So when his girlfriend, Lila, started acting differently, sudden late nights at work, her phone glued to her hand, and an odd new perfume that wasn't hers, he noticed. It wasn't long before he confirmed the truth. A friend tipped him off, and a few social media snoops later, Jason had all the evidence he needed. Lila was cheating, but instead of confronting her in anger, Jason decided to take a different approach. Lila came home one Friday evening, visibly nervous. Jason greeted her with a warm smile, a bouquet of her favorite flowers and a candlelit dinner waiting in the dining room. She looked surprised, almost guilty, but Jason brushed it off. "I thought we could have a special night," he said casually. As they sat down, Jason made her favorite pasta and poured her wine. He asked her about her day, listening intently as she stumbled through vague answers. The tension in the air was thick, but Jason kept his cool. When dessert arrived, a rich chocolate cake, Jason placed a small, wrapped box next to her plate. "What's this?" Lila asked, her voice trembling. "Open it," Jason said with a gentle smile. Inside was a neatly folded piece of paper. Lila's hand shook as she read it. Screenshots of her messages with the other man, a photo of them at a cafe, and even a note from Jason himself. Asterisk, "I know everything. Enjoy your cake. It's the last thing I'm making for you." Asterisk. Lila looked up in shock, tears welling in her eyes, but Jason was already standing. "I packed your things," he said calmly. "They're by the door. I suggest you pick them up before you leave." Lila stammered, trying to explain, but Jason held up a hand. "I deserve someone who values honesty and loyalty, Lila. Good luck." With that, Jason walked out of the dining room, leaving her to face the weight of her actions alone. The surprise wasn't just in the revelation. It was in Jason's grace, composure, and the unshakable dignity he had as he let her go. Lila sat in stunned silence for what felt like an eternity, the weight of her choices finally sinking in. The evidence in the box was irrefutable, and Jason's calm yet resolute demeanor only made it worse. She had expected anger, shouting, maybe even a dramatic argument. Instead, he had handled it with a level of maturity and self-respect she hadn't anticipated. As she packed up the last of her belongings from the apartment, she couldn't help but think back to all the small moments she'd taken for granted. The mornings Jason would bring her coffee just the way she liked it, the way he'd listen intently to her stories, even when they were mundane, and how he always found little ways to make her smile. Outside, the city lights twinkled, and the cool evening air stung her cheeks as she carried her suitcase down the street. She glanced back at the apartment building one last time, hoping for a glimpse of him, but Jason didn't appear. Inside, Jason sat on the couch, staring at the empty wine glass she had left behind. A strange mix of relief and sadness washed over him. He had loved her deeply, but he also knew love without trust wasn't enough. In the days that followed, Jason threw himself into rebuilding his life. He started jogging in the mornings, signed up for a cooking class he had always wanted to take, and reconnected with old friends he had neglected during his relationship. Every day, the weight on his chest grew lighter. One evening, while scrolling through his phone, a message popped up from an old college friend, Sophie. Asterisk, "Hey Jason, I saw your photos from the cooking class. Didn't know you had such a talent. Let me know if you ever want to grab coffee and catch up." Asterisk. Jason smiled. Sophie had always been someone he admired, but they had drifted apart over the years. "Sure," he typed back. "Coffee sounds great." As he hit send, he felt a renewed sense of hope. The past was behind him, and the future was wide open. Meanwhile, Lila tried to piece her life back together, but she couldn't shake the nagging regret of what she had lost. She reached out to Jason once, months later, asking if they could talk, but he politely declined. Jason had moved on, his life fuller and more vibrant than ever. He had learned that heartbreak, while painful, often led to growth, and sometimes even to new beginnings. Months turned into a year, and Jason's life blossomed in ways he hadn't anticipated. The cooking class led him to develop a real passion for culinary arts, and soon he was hosting small dinner parties for friends. The casual coffee with Sophie had turned into regular meetups, and over time, something deeper began to bloom between them. Sophie was different from Lila in so many ways. She was open, kind, and fiercely loyal. Jason admired how she tackled life with a sense of purpose, and she, in turn, admired his resilience and thoughtfulness. Their relationship grew naturally, built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect. One evening, after hosting a particularly successful dinner party, Jason found himself alone with Sophie in the kitchen. As they washed dishes side by side, Sophie paused, drying her hands. "You know," she began, a soft smile playing on her lips, "I think you've found your calling. These dinners are amazing. Have you ever thought about opening a little restaurant or a cafe?" Jason chuckled. "It's crossed my mind, but I wouldn't even know where to start." "Well," Sophie said, her eyes twinkling, "I happen to know a thing or two about starting small businesses. Maybe we could figure it out together." Jason looked at her, feeling a surge of gratitude and admiration. "I'd like that," he said. As the months went by, they began planning in earnest. Sophie's expertise in business, combined with Jason's culinary skills, made for a perfect partnership. They eventually opened a cozy cafe in the heart of the city, serving delicious, homemade meals with an emphasis on community and warmth. Meanwhile, Lila's life hadn't fared as well. She bounced between short-lived relationships and struggled to find the stability she once had with Jason. One day, while scrolling through social media, she stumbled upon a post from a mutual friend, a photo of Jason and Sophie standing in front of their cafe, smiling proudly. The caption read, "Asterisk, so proud of these two for opening their dream cafe. The food is amazing, and the love they've poured into this place is palpable. Everyone, go check out Savor and Soul, asterisk." Lila stared at the photo, a pang of regret hitting her hard. She thought about reaching out again, but deep down, she knew it was too late. Jason had moved on, not just to someone else, but to a new chapter in his life where she no longer had a place. Jason, however, wasn't thinking about the past. His life was full of love, purpose, and joy. On a quiet evening at the cafe, after all the customers had left, Sophie handed Jason a small, wrapped box. "What's this?" Jason asked, echoing words he'd once spoken long ago. "Open it," Sophie said, grinning. Inside was a key, an engraved key to their cafe, with their names intertwined in a simple, elegant design. Jason laughed. "You know, this might be the best surprise I've ever gotten." Sophie smiled and leaned in close. "That's because you finally found someone who'll always have your back." Jason knew she was right, and for the first time in a long time, he felt completely at peace. The cafe, Savor and Soul, quickly became a beloved spot in the neighborhood. Customers raved about the warm atmosphere, the personal touches Jason brought to the menu, and the way Sophie managed every detail with precision and heart. Together, they had created more than a business. They had created a community. One evening, about a year after the cafe opened, Jason and Sophie hosted a special anniversary event. The place was filled with regulars, friends, and family. As Jason prepared a signature dish in the kitchen, Sophie took the microphone to thank everyone for their support. "Jason and I had a dream, but you all made it a reality," Sophie said, her voice filled with emotion. "This cafe isn't just ours. It's yours too. We're so grateful to be a part of your lives." As the crowd cheered, Jason stepped out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He approached Sophie, who handed him the mic. "I'd like to second everything Sophie said," Jason began, smiling at the room. "But there's one more thing I'd like to say." Sophie looked at him curiously as Jason set the mic down and reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small velvet box and got down on one knee. The crowd gasped, and Sophie's hands flew to her mouth in surprise. "Sophie," Jason said, his voice steady but filled with emotion, You've been my partner in every way, my friend, my teammate, and my biggest supporter. You believed in me when I doubted myself and showed me what real love looks like. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Sophie's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "yes." The room erupted in applause as Jason slid the ring onto her finger. The night turned into a celebration of not just the cafe's success, but the love that had grown between them. Months later, their wedding was held in a beautiful garden, with friends and family gathered to witness their vows. Jason stood at the altar, looking at Sophie, who glowed with happiness. As he spoke his vows, he thought back to the pain of the past, the betrayal he once felt, and how it had all led him to this moment. "Life has a way of surprising us," Jason said, his voice steady. "Sometimes, the hardest moments are the ones that shape us the most. They teach us what we truly want, what we deserve, and who we're meant to be with. Sophie, you are my second chance, my dream come true, and my forever. I promise to love you, support you, and cherish every moment we have together." As they exchanged rings and kissed, the future stretched out before them, bright and full of promise. Jason knew he had found not just a partner, but a love that would stand the test of time. Jason and Sophie's married life was everything they had hoped for, full of love, laughter, and growth. They poured their energy into Savor and Soul, expanding its offerings with cooking workshops, theme nights, and even a monthly community dinner for those in need. The cafe became more than a business. It was a hub for connection and kindness. One crisp autumn evening, as Jason and Sophie closed up the cafe, Sophie leaned against the counter, sipping the last of her tea. "Do you ever think about where we'll be in 5 years?" she asked, looking at Jason with a curious smile. Jason chuckled, wiping down the espresso machine. "I think about it all the time," he admitted. "I see us growing this place, maybe opening another location. And," he paused, his smile turning playful, "maybe a little one running around here." Sophie's eyes widened. "A little one? Like a kid?" Jason nodded. "Why not? I think we'd make pretty great parents." Sophie set her mug down, her face softening. "I think so, too." She reached out, taking his hand. "Let's do it. Let's start a family." The next chapter of their lives began with anticipation and excitement. A few months later, they found out Sophie was pregnant. Jason was over the moon, and Sophie, while nervous, felt a deep sense of joy and readiness. As the months passed, they prepared for their new addition, balancing their growing family with the thriving cafe. The community rallied around them, showering them with gifts, advice, and support. One evening, after closing the cafe, Jason and Sophie sat together in the nursery they had set up in their cozy apartment. The room was painted a soft shade of yellow, with a rocking chair by the window and a crib waiting for its tiny occupant. Jason wrapped an arm around Sophie, resting his hand on her growing belly. "Do you think they'll love the cafe as much as we do?" he asked with a grin. Sophie laughed. "I think they'll have no choice. This place will probably be their second home." When their daughter, Ella, was born, she brought a new light into their lives. Jason and Sophie juggled late nights and early mornings, taking turns at the cafe and at home. It wasn't always easy, but their partnership made every challenge manageable. Ella grew up surrounded by love and the aroma of freshly baked bread and coffee. She took her first steps in the cafe's dining room, much to the delight of the regular customers, and by the time she was 5, she was helping her parents by handing out menus and charming everyone with her bright smile. Years later, as Jason watched Ella run through the cafe, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. His life had come full circle, from heartbreak to healing, from loss to love. Savor and Soul wasn't just a cafe. It was a testament to resilience, community, and the power of second chances. And as he glanced at Sophie, who was laughing with a customer, and Ella, who was trying to convince a patron to try her special menu, a combination of cookies and milk, Jason knew one thing for certain. He was exactly where he was meant to be. As Ella grew older, she became an integral part of Savor and Soul. Her boundless curiosity and infectious energy brought a new dynamic to the cafe. Customers loved her imaginative contributions, like the Kids Corner menu she created with Jason, which featured fun dishes named after animals and colors. By the time Ella was 10, she had a knack for connecting with people. She often spent afternoons sitting with customers, asking about their days, and dreaming up ways to make the cafe even better. Jason and Sophie encouraged her creativity, proud of how naturally she embraced the family business. One rainy afternoon, as Jason was teaching Ella how to make her favorite dessert, a chocolate lava cake, she asked a question that caught him off guard. "Dad, do you think I'll run Savor and Soul when I grow up?" Jason paused, looking at her as she carefully poured the batter into the ramekins. "If that's what you want, sweetie, I'd be happy to see you do it. But you don't have to. You can be anything you want to be." Ella tilted her head thoughtfully. "I love the cafe, but I also love art and animals. Maybe I can do all of it." Jason smiled, pulling her into a gentle hug. "You can do anything you set your mind to. Just remember, whatever you choose, we'll always support you." As Ella's passions grew, so did the cafe. Sophie and Jason decided to open a second location in a neighboring city. Sophie handled the logistics, while Jason focused on training a new kitchen staff. The expansion was challenging, but their partnership remained strong, built on the trust and love they had nurtured over the years. Ella, now a teenager, found her own way to contribute. She started a charity program through the cafe, organizing Coffee for a Cause, nights where a portion of the proceeds went to local shelters and animal rescues. Her artwork, bright, whimsical pieces featuring food and animals, decorated the walls of both locations, making the spaces feel even more inviting. One evening, after a successful charity event, Ella sat with Jason and Sophie in the original cafe. The three of them sipped hot cocoa, the warmth of the evening wrapping around them. "I think I want to study art," Ella said suddenly. Sophie beamed. "That's wonderful, honey. Have you thought about schools?" Ella nodded. "There's a program in the city that focuses on community-based art. I think it would be perfect." Jason reached over, squeezing her hand. "I'm proud of you, Ella. Whatever path you take, I know you'll make it special, just like you've done with this place." As Ella's journey unfolded, the cafe continued to thrive, evolving into a family legacy. Customers often remarked on how Savor and Soul wasn't just a place to eat. It was a place where stories were shared, milestones were celebrated, and dreams took flight. Years later, as Jason and Sophie looked back on everything they had built, they felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Their love story had grown into something greater than themselves, rooted in family, community, and a belief in the power of new beginnings. And as Ella prepared to head off to art school, she left behind a mural in the cafe that summed up their journey in bold, colorful letters. As Ella embarked on her journey to art school, Jason and Sophie found themselves adjusting to life without their daughter at home. The cafe had grown into a well-known establishment, with both locations thriving, and yet there was a quiet space in their lives where Ella's energy had once filled every corner. It wasn't long before Ella's first set of art pieces, created during her first semester, arrived in the mail, a collection inspired by her experiences working at Savor and Soul and the bond she had with the cafe. The pieces were vibrant, filled with bold strokes and imagery that captured the warmth of the space, the people who frequented it, and the love that went into every meal. One of the paintings, a large, bright piece titled A Taste of Home, showed a steaming cup of coffee surrounded by abstract swirls of color and shapes that looked like hearts. Sophie hung the painting in the cafe's dining room, where customers could see it upon entering. It quickly became a favorite, sparking conversations among regulars who recognized the familiar theme. They were proud of Ella, knowing that no matter where she went or how far she traveled, a piece of her would always be with them. As Ella's art continued to gain recognition, she held her first solo gallery show at a local art space. Jason and Sophie traveled to the event, beaming with pride as they watched Ella interact with the crowd, discussing her work with a confidence they hadn't seen before. "Mom, Dad," Ella said with a grin, "I'm thinking about collaborating with the cafe for my next project. I want to make an art installation here, something that brings even more community spirit into this place." Sophie's eyes lit up. "Ella, that sounds like an incredible idea. I'd love to see what you create." Jason agreed, his voice full of admiration. "You've always had a way of making things feel connected, like everything has a purpose. Your work has a soul to it, just like this cafe." The collaboration took months, with Ella sketching ideas, brainstorming with Jason and Sophie, and integrating feedback from the cafe's customers. When the installation was finally revealed, it was nothing short of breathtaking. The cafe's walls were transformed into an interactive experience. Ella had created a mural of vibrant food, animals, and abstract shapes that encouraged people to add their own touches, whether it was a drawing, a note, or a symbol that represented something meaningful to them. The centerpiece was a large tree, its branches extending throughout the space, inviting everyone who entered to contribute their own personal mark. Ella's installation was a stunning success. People from all walks of life came to the cafe, leaving their own signatures on the mural, and a sense of unity filled the air. It became a living piece of art that told the story of the cafe and the community it served. As the years went by, Ella's art continued to evolve. She traveled the world, studying different artistic movements and techniques, but she always returned to Savor and Soul, where she felt most at home. Jason and Sophie watched with pride as their daughter became a recognized artist, but they always reminded her that no matter how far her art took her, their cafe would always be the heart of their family. Eventually, Ella made a decision that surprised them all. She wanted to run a third location of Savor and Soul. "I've seen how this place has connected people over the years," Ella said during a family meeting, "and I want to build a space where art and food come together in the same way. A place that's more than just a cafe, somewhere people can come to create, share, and connect. I want to honor everything you've built and add my own touch to it." Jason and Sophie exchanged a glance, their hearts full. They had always encouraged Ella to follow her passions, and now they were excited to see her carry the family legacy into the next generation. As they helped her open the new location, a beautiful, airy space filled with natural light, with murals created by Ella herself, the cafe's reputation continued to spread. It became a gathering place for artists, musicians, writers, and creators of all kinds, bridging the gap between food, art, and community. And as Jason and Sophie stood together at the grand opening of the third Savor and Soul location, watching their daughter greet customers with the same warmth they had always shared, they knew that their legacy would continue. It wasn't just about a business. It was about the love, the connections, and the second chances that had brought them here. Their family had not only survived, it had thrived. And as Ella looked around at the bustling cafe, she smiled to herself, knowing that she was carrying forward a tradition built on love, resilience, and a belief that a place filled with soul could change lives, one meal at a time.